Hey everybody, Ryan here from Music City Live. Welcome to the episode. I'm here with Mitch Seekings. Mitch, thank you for coming on.
You're very welcome.
Mitch, vocal coach, former vocalist, and father, as we were just discussing.
Yep. Yeah.
And what a great time for me to be a father. But for you, you got 4, you said, right?
Yep. 2 growing up and 2 almost growing up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get there one day.
Yeah.
And former vocalist, right? So retired from...
Yeah, I retired in 2018.
Okay.
From gigging and touring. It was after 37 years, I wanted to concentrate on the coaching, which I've been doing for a very long time as well. So
cool. Where did you, early days, where did you grow up?
I grew up in northern Alberta, way back into the bush. So kind of like a hillbilly. Believe it or not. So it was 450 miles north of Edmonton into the bush. And
wow.
Yeah. Didn't get electricity until I was maybe 8. Left home when I was 17. Still didn't have indoor plumbing.
Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So it was definitely a different time.
Yes.
You know.
My mom inherited a place up north that's like this.
Oh, yeah?
And I actually drive 8 hours one direction just to experience this with people.
I used to.
So
live it.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty wild.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah. Old wood stove would heat us in the winter. And when it got down to minus 40, minus 45. And Coleman lamps until the electricity finally arrived in the area. So,
Jerry, we got some photos of this too, I think, right? Yeah, right there. There we go.
We didn't have TV,
no?
So that was the favorite thing to do. And there is a point behind me sharing all this kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And we used to play with all the wildlife that would come in.
That's awesome.
The bear was pretty tired by the end of the session. You know. We got home from school, my sister and I, and Dad said, "Hey, got a friend I want you to meet."
There's a bear out back. That's not an average day for an average kid, I'll tell you.
Well, it was for us.
It was then, yeah, there.
You know?
Yeah, not here.
And that's just me learning, teaching myself how to play guitar.
Was that still back home though?
Yeah, that's the farmhouse. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. So. You grew up there, until what age?
I left home when I was 17.
17?
Yeah.
And then what happened after that, after you left home?
Well, I mean, the reason why I left home is because I wanted to get any kind of musical education because, I had a goal ever since I was 5. So earlier than that first picture that you showed, my mother played me a record. And an old 78, actually. And it blew my mind as a 5-year-old. I can remember it clearly. Hearing this, it was a male choir that started, and then this started going, and then this voice soared over top. And I was just totally mesmerized by it. And I thought, I remember thinking, that's what I want to do.
Wow.
So
at that age?
From that age.
Wow.
So it's all I've ever wanted to do ever since I was 5. And Silver Valley, which is the place I grew up, it's not a town, it's a farming community. Mm-hmm. There was absolutely no chance of musical education. My dad did take me to 2 guitar lessons, but that was Grand Prairie, so that was 100 miles each way.
Wow.
So it was 200 miles, so it just wasn't sustainable.
Yeah, right. But your parents supported it all, obviously.
Yep. In a manner of speaking.
Sure.
My dad was not as supportive as my mom. He wanted me to take over the farm,
sure,
which I was not
sense.
Interested in the least. But
okay.
So yeah, I left home and put myself through my final year of high school. Went to a larger town just south of Edmonton to try and get some kind of musical.
And did they have anything musical going on there?
What at
the school that's just south of you?
Oh yeah. I got into the music program and played percussion for the semester.
Nice.
So it was something. It was something.
Sure.
It was anything. Just anything at all.
So you said you left home to try to get some music education, and that was what age was that again?
17.
17.
Yeah, I just turned 17 and I left home. Yeah.
And what was the plan? Was there a plan at that point?
For music?
Well, just what you were going to do when you left home, like where you were going to go.
Yeah, I actually I was a provincial-level athlete.
Oh yeah.
All through high school, I was the Alberta shot put champion. Believe it or not.
I think there's a photo of this, Jerry.
Yeah.
The second folder there.
And I happened to, there we go.
I
happened to do, I think it was regionals at this one town south of Edmonton, and I really liked the town. I thought this might be a good town to come to. Small, quaint, nice high school. The school, because I was competing at the high school, and I thought, why not? So I just got myself, what did they call it? Room and board. And I had some money. My mother tragically died in a car accident a few years earlier than that.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And so I had a little bit of funding to help me get through.
Okay.
That time. So I did a full semester there, and then moved to Calgary to join a jazz band, which was such a that was an experience.
I can imagine.
Yeah. To play bass, but I didn't play bass. So how it goes. One of those
all the interesting factors going on.
Yeah. But
did they know you couldn't play bass?
Yeah. He said you can learn. Okay. All right.
Famous last words.
Famous last words. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole point of all of that is that, coming from where I came from, I still was able to, do what I wanted to do, which was just basically get into a band and start on the road.
Sure.
So, you don't have to be some, city boy with lots of money behind you. If you're focused, you do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's interesting. And when you did that jazz band thing, how old were you at that point?
17.
17. So that was okay.
Yeah.
So it was right around that same time.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And then after that, like, how did you go from there to, like, did you go on the road then at that point, or what was the next
I
sort of step?
graduated. Yeah, I graduated and then moved back to Edmonton, and my goal was to find a band.
Okay.
And just so happens that my cousin's neighbor was in a band, so I joined them.
Oh, wow.
And played with them for a year.
Okay.
And
what was the name of the band?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. But we learned, I think, 5 songs in that year. And every practice, everybody had to relearn the same songs.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So I got tired of it. I said, listen, guys, like, I want to go on the road. This is what I want to do. Sure. So either we're going to do this or we're not. I got to move on. So they said, okay, let's do this. Well, I found a gig for us. There was a Elvis impersonator looking for a band.
Oh, wow.
The Elvis impersonator was Chinese.
This is awesome.
I know. Chinese, and he stuttered worse than Mel Tillis. I don't know if you know who Mel Tillis
of course.
is.
Oh, that's
the
crazy.
Stutter was just horrendous.
That's crazy.
And the first time we met him, he got stuck on an N when we were talking, and it was everything. I was respectful, but the other guys in the band had a really hard time keeping it together. But, he picked us up, and we learned like 40 songs in 2 weeks, and we went on the road, and it took years before I got paid as much as Lee Young was the artist paid me.
Wow.
It was a great show. He didn't stutter on stage when he sang.
Well, I was going to ask.
You know?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So we did like Elvis 50s, 60s, and 70s, and then after that the band did like a 50s set. We did.
That's cool.
So yeah, and that lasted a year. So,
okay,
about a year, and then it was time to join a rock band. So.
And then what? So joining the rock band, when did that happen out west, or was that
out west? Yeah. I joined a band out of Vancouver, which was an absolute train wreck. Left them after a month, just because it was just oh my God, just one disaster after another. PAs blowing up, gigs canceling. Not enough money to put gas in the truck.
Sounds like a rock and roll band.
Oh, it was a rock and roll band. Oh yeah, that was quite an experience. I think I snuck away in the middle of the night one night. I just packed my car and left because it was just such a shit show.
You're like, yeah, I don't need this no more. I'm out of here.
I'm done. I gotta leave.
So you left Vancouver and
went back to Edmonton and got into a band there. And was touring around Alberta with them for, I don't know, 8 months, and then got into a much higher quality act with a proper agent and everything. And we did all the big clubs in Alberta and BC for about a year and a half, I think, maybe almost 2 years. It was a decent band. And then that just kind of faded away, and I decided to move to Ontario to figure out, which was the musical center of the universe at that point in time in Canada. And my goal was to figure out why I could do certain things on certain nights, but not on others, vocally, because I was the lead vocalist for all these. So I decided to find myself a teacher. And started my studies.
Interesting. Who's your teacher?
The first guy was a guy named Ed Johnson out of Fergus.
Okay.
I think Ed's biggest student was Helix, the lead singer from Helix.
Oh yeah, Brian.
Brian. Yeah. So I studied with Ed for about a year and a half, and then. But twice a week for a year and a half, I didn't gig, I didn't rehearse, I didn't do anything. I just studied.
Oh wow!
And then decided to get a band together and go back out west because they were paying like $4,000 or $5,000 a week for a thing, and so got into a band, went back out west, and worst decision I could have made.
Oh really?
More stories. Just again, gigs canceling, bar got broken into. I got, I don't know, $7,000 or $8,000 worth of gear stolen. I got sued. It was just
what? Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Never got any of the gear back?
Nope. Had to purchase new stuff. Unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah. The guy broke in, but the bar couldn't be locked. Yeah. Get that. Anybody can walk into the bar.
So it's a target for sure. Then.
Absolutely. The guy left gaff tape on the walls all the way out through the front doors of the hotel as he was carrying my equipment.
Wow.
Yeah. He left a trail.
That's wild.
I know. Yeah. Crazy.
Sociopath.
A little bit. Or just...
Or, hey, I was here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Calling card.
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild. Yeah, unfortunately, I know some people from town and not from town who've had that situation, right?
Yeah.
Where stuff gets stolen. And the worst is when, it's like, guitars that you've toured with for years.
Oh, I know.
And they have sentimental value. And some of them sometimes have no value. Like, they're not even really nice guitars. Yeah. They've just been, it's like a guitar that your dad bought you that you've been playing forever, right?
Yeah.
it's those types of situations that are just brutal. That,
I know.
That I've, people are just beside themselves. And
Yeah.
the whole sort of group down here in Southern Ontario, usually we all kind of get together and send emails around and we try to find it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Ian Thornley is going through something like that with one of Brian's guitars.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Got stolen, and he's put out the word to try and find out where this guitar might be. Nothing yet as far as I know.
Yeah, this is brutal. Yeah. This is brutal, man. Yeah. And we do look like, guys like him will connect with someone like me from a music store, and then all of us music store owners will share that too, right?
Yeah.
So we'll be on the lookout for it, and but sometimes it just, these things just go sideways.
That's right. Yeah, go across the border with it and take it down south. I mean, who knows?
I saw a post the other day on social media that the guys from Back to the Future are looking for the original ES guitar that he played in Back to the Future 2.
Yeah.
Or whatever, Back to the Future 1, I guess it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're looking for that guitar. Apparently it went missing like right after the taping. So
really?
Yeah. So they're looking for it.
Wow.
But it could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's crazy. So then did you come back to Ontario after that? After that all?
Oh yeah, with my tail between my legs, and it was just such. And the brutal part about it was that I knew everybody out there, and but because I had moved out east, back then the redneck attitude was in high form, and the Albertans don't really like people from out east, unfortunately. Not trying to get political, but it was just the situation. Even though I knew everybody, they did not.
Now, do you
treat
think?
Me very
do you
well,
think specifically in the music industry now? Do you think that was more so at that time?
Absolutely.
Now?
It's not like that now.
Yeah, because I go out there now and I don't get that vibe at all.
No. This is, I mean, God, we're talking like 1980, 87, 88,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like that anymore. Thank God. But nonetheless, I came back to Ontario after that.
And then after you came back, what was the plan after that?
Just take the band out east, just tour, got myself, a different agent here in Ontario, and worked that band for a while.
Cool.
Toured all over Eastern Canada with that. So I've toured from coast to coast to coast to coast many times. There's a
folder that, if you go back one, that one there, yeah. So at what point was this?
That was quite a bit later on.
Was it later on?
Yeah. I tried to find some pictures for you, but I have no idea where they are from that, rock era kind of thing,
okay. And then, then after that sort of thing, at some point shortly thereafter, you decided to open up the studios, right?
Yeah. Well, my Ed Johnson actually suggested that maybe I should think about teaching. It's actually the way my mind works. Training as an athlete for so long, I outgrew my coach within about 4 months. Learning how to throw a shot put, and so I trained myself every day. Every noon hour, I was out throwing this silly steel ball in the field, trying to figure out, exactly how to get more distance, body position, stance, speed, all of that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's just the way that my mind has always worked in terms of, putting singing together with the physicality of an athlete, So I think Ed may have seen that. I was very analytical and that kind of thing. And he said, maybe you should be a teacher. He wanted to retire. And at that point in time, I had planning a family, and I thought, well, I'm just gigging on Ontario now. I'm not really on the road so much anymore. Why not give it a shot? So I started. And the first year, I think I had maybe 4 or 5 students. And then the second year, it exploded. The teaching thing exploded, and I opened a studio here in London, one in Hamilton and one in Toronto.
Nice.
Where I was.
And I didn't touch on it at the beginning of the episode, but the studio in London was here, right?
Yeah.
It was in this
building. Yeah.
And you haven't been back here since then, right?
I have not.
Yeah.
No, I had the studio for 2 years, and then closed it down to concentrate on opera. Concentrate on that.
Which is what I think some of the photos that you sent me.
Some of the photos, yeah. The earlier photos, that's quite a bit later.
Still? Yeah.
That's quite a bit later, yeah. 3 tenor shows, I've had a couple of those. So I did opera for, I think, 5 or 6 years, nothing but opera. I stopped singing rock and pop just because I was bored. There was nothing I couldn't do anymore, and I wanted a challenge, And opera is incredibly difficult to sing.
Yeah,
so I wanted to try that. Now, I mean, I dreamt of having it as a career, but number one, I started it way too late. I didn't start really into opera until I was like 33 or something like that, which is too late to start an opera career. And so I did that for 5 or 6 years. I had a great time with it. But then somebody decided to pay me quite handsomely to come back and sing rock and pop, which was that first picture that you had.
Oh, okay.
And it morphed into this kind of thing.
That one?
That one. Yeah, that one. And we started doing big corporate shows. It was 11-piece corporate band. And
wow.
Yeah. And then I was,
go back, Chair. I think, keep going. So that was part of that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Dancers and 11-piece and horn section.
And
everything.
Was it just Ontario that was happening in, or where did that come from?
We did Cancun. We did a little bit in Quebec. And that band was really good. The band was really good. The players were awesome. And we covered everything from, play that funky music white boy to the Gypsy Kings, because with all the opera stuff, I can sing in 5 different languages.
Oh, wow.
So we were doing really, really well. And you could just feel that things were just building. And then 9/11 happened.
Right.
And everything shut completely down.
Yeah, right.
So.
Yeah, the music industry seems to have these moments, eh?
It does.
COVID was another one, right?
COVID was another one.
Yeah.
Although I felt, as a vocal teacher, because by the time COVID hit, I had retired by then. I was swamped, absolutely swamped, because everybody was staying at home.
Yeah, on the education end, it would have been busy as heck.
Yeah, really, really busy. But man, nobody gigged for 2 years.
I know, that's crazy.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
So how far after 9/11 did things start to pick back up again?
They never really did. I mean, it was beginning to go again. Like, things were starting to pick up. And then SARS happened. I don't know if you remember SARS, right? Yeah. And I got slammed again.
Nice.
So then, just like any other business, you really try to reinvent yourself. And, my whole goal in life was to, be a full-time musician and make a living from it. I didn't want a regular day job. I wanted to play music. That's what I wanted to do. So, you try different things and experiment and see what works, what doesn't. You work it. And then somebody approached me to do a 3-tenor act. And I started in with that, and that was semi-successful, and, toured all over North America with that.
And that was those photos, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the first 3-tenor show fizzled, and then I started another one, and same kind of thing, kept it going. I was signed to an agency down in Richmond, Virginia, and they kept me working. And then I just did other things as well, just throwing it up against the wall. Is it going to stick? Is it going to work? I don't know.
And so when you started those studios in London, how were you getting the students? Like, who was coming to this?
I had a guy from London come to study with me in Toronto. His name was Kevin Weidman. And
of course, I know Kevin.
You know Kevin?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And he was saying, I really like studying with you, and you should consider opening a studio in London. He said, I think I could get you quite a few students. So, okay. And he came and he introduced me to your dad, and there was a space that I could use, and it was like one night, and before I knew it, I was teaching 2 days a week here in London, and it was 10 to 12 hours a day.
I remember
I was teaching. It was insane.
I mean, I was 10 years old when it was going down, but I do remember that. It was long days for you back then.
Long days. And then I slept in the studio.
Wow.
So I could start the next day when I added the second day.
Yeah.
But out of that, M. Greiner came in before she was
Amazing.
M. Greiner. Mary, you know?
Absolutely.
So,
there's a photo of her, I think, Jer,
Yeah.
in the first artist folder. Just go back out. No, back out to the folders. There you go. Yeah, there we go. There
Mary.
she is.
M. Greiner. Yep.
And then there's a couple other photos in this folder too, Jer. So you said, these were labeled students as well, right? So Margo from the Cowboy Junkies was another one?
That was my first recording artist.
Recording artist.
Yeah, that came to see me.
Okay.
Was Margo.
And when did that happen?
94.
Okay.
I want to say 94.
That would have been in where, Toronto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for the life of me, I can't remember how she got my name. And I mean, Margo's great. She doesn't really need to study voice, but what she wanted to do is just get a little more consistent and have a little more range and what have you. And plus it was a media thing. Mm-hmm. She explained that every record, they give something to the media to run with. And for this record, it was that Margo's taking singing lessons, and I just happened to be the teacher,
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it was good. Yeah.
And then the other one, Jer, what was the other? There was a second student, right?
Oh yeah. Ryan Corrigan.
Yes.
Hawksley Workman.
Yeah.
He studied with me before he became Hawksley Workman, before the first record.
Okay.
So he was with me for about a year and a half. He wanted to, make sure that he didn't hurt himself on the road. Sure. Because the stuff that he sings is not easy to sing.
No, that's right.
And then, put out his first record that he recorded in his bedroom. And awesome. I didn't see him for years afterwards because he got really busy, but not only as a touring artist, but also as a fairly highly regarded producer.
Yeah, producer.
Record producer, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. So after the stint in London, what happened? You decided to close things down here and went back to Toronto?
Yeah, and just concentrated on learning opera roles and that kind of thing. And just I shut down both studios, the London and the Hamilton studio, and just stayed in Toronto and concentrated on that. I was also like coaching myself, taking lessons four times a week at that point in time as well. studying 4 times a week.
So I guess we should elaborate on, so what was this, because there's different types of like singing, right?
Yeah.
What was the style, I don't know what you call that, but what's the style of singing that you were doing mostly?
Teaching, you mean? Is that what you mean?
Teaching, yeah.
I mean, it's a weird thing, I was told that what I was learning was something called Bel Canto.
Right.
And it was pointed out to me several years later that Bel Canto, may have been a method, but honestly, what it really is, it's a style of music. And this was the technique that they used to sing that style of music. And it was highly prevalent, particularly with a group of singers called castratos. Nobody really knows anymore what those singers did to do what they did.
Really?
Yeah. So you can't honestly say it's pure Bel Canto because there's no such thing anymore. So there's elements of everything in there from what I teach. And one of the things that has helped me become a better teacher is that everything that I've learned, and I had 3 different teachers in total. Teachers, and then there's coaches on top of that where it's music and language and phrasing and all that sort of thing. I got to try everything myself on the road, on stage, with almost every different kind of music. I've sung, jazz, pop, rock, metal, opera, musical theater.
Wow. That is diverse.
Yeah.
And
everything.
in multiple languages?
Yeah, in multiple languages.
That's crazy.
And at a professional level, yeah, even the opera, I guess I got paid for it, so I guess it's professional.
Nice.
Was I very good at it? I was okay. It wasn't stellar, but I was okay. Make a living.
Sure. Yeah. You look the part anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But I got to try all this stuff and hone it and tweak it for every different kind of genre that I was performing. And because of, being the athlete and how my brain has always worked in that aspect, I've been able to teach people what they need to do in order to, get better, have more control, more range, more endurance, definitely more endurance, and not hurt themselves, but still sound like them, which is really important, because a lot of people will think, I don't know about so much anymore, but 20 years ago, well, I don't want to study voice. I don't want to sound like an opera singer when I'm singing rock, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not like that. It's not like that. It's all about doing what you can for the job and, not damaging yourself and growing as a singer, being able to do whatever comes into your head.
I was going to bring this up later, but we might as well talk about it now. So
sure.
You mentioned damaging your voice.
Yep.
Has there been cases where you've seen people damage their voices, and what is that? What does that even look like? Like, is that, and do you come back from that? Like, I guess there's multiple questions there, but
yeah, I'm kind of known as the guy that when somebody gets hurt, usually my name comes up. Because what I do actually repairs voices.
Really?
Yeah. The first person that I had to deal with was here in London. And he actually blew a hole through one of his vocal cords.
Wow.
Yeah, which is pretty extreme.
That's very extreme.
Yeah. And he was in a house band back then. They had, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night performance. And when he came to me, he was singing, he'd sing like 3 or 4 songs the first night. and then some backups, and then tambourine. The second night he would sing 2 or 3 songs, and then tambourine. And the third night it was just tambourine. He couldn't sing.
Wow.
I had no idea whether I was going to be able to help him or not. But we worked for a good year and a half. And it got him to the point where he was able to sing Thursday, Friday, and Saturday all night.
Wow.
But then he had to take Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off. So that was my first kind of success with that. I had no clue that it would do that. I had no idea, and then I had another vocalist here in London who had caught the attention of David Foster. And she had, at the age of 14, she had the beginning of nodes. So she worked with me for a while, and we got those to go away.
Wow.
And it just kind of built from there, the more I got into it, because that was early in my teaching career. And as I learned more and was able to teach more and come across different voices and different genres of music, and I just found that I was able to deal with more and more issues in a certain fashion. And I honestly believe it's simply because I was an athlete, because of the way that I think. Not all vocal teachers seem to have success with that, but I seem to. The worst case that I've dealt with was a singer from a band called Pup. Came to me, both vocal cords were hemorrhaged on stage. And the doctors were telling him that, get your affairs in order. It's done. You need to move on to something else. And Pup was just beginning to. They were working hard, man. They were working really 250 shows a year.
Oh wow.
And which is one of the reasons why.
Yeah.
He hurt himself. It's too much, and then screaming like he does. He worked with me for 4 months, and I can't even remember where he maybe got my name from. Dr. Lowe. He may have said something. He heard about this guy, which is me. Anyway, and then he had a short tour to do. It wasn't pretty. Came back, worked again. Had another short tour. Wasn't pretty. Came back, worked again for another 3 or 4 months. Then he had an Australian tour. Came back, and by the end, it's years down the road now, and I only see Stefan when I'm prepping him for the next record or for a tour. Just get him back into shape and just make sure all the mechanics are working. But
see, that must freak some people out to hear you say that, because even I've been in the industry my whole life, and I didn't realize that singers would do that they would prep with someone like yourself.
Yeah. Say that one again?
Well, I said I didn't realize that somebody that would prep with someone like yourself, right? Like, I had no idea that was even a thing.
Yeah. The biggest band that I've been working with for a long time is 3 Days Grace.
Wow.
I work with Matt, not Adam.
Okay.
So I've been working with Matt since 2014, and there's been building technique so he can get through those shows, because those shows are not easy at all. And then prep him before records, and even work with him during the recording process. And then I don't see him unless he gets sick when he's on tour.
Oh, no. So if he gets sick, then what happens?
Oh, he calls me and we go through some stuff and make sure everything's okay, and warm him up for whatever show happens to be happening that night. And
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a run with them. We had some gear out with them a year or so ago.
They're coming this Saturday.
Yeah, and I got to meet the guys. They were in our shop. They were prepping for the tour. And
were they?
Yeah, it was cool. But good, nice bunch of guys for sure.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize that until I saw your thing. I didn't realize that you were working with those guys. But
yeah. And it's just built from there, you know. So like I said, whenever there's somebody with issues, usually my name comes up.
Interesting.
Usually, yeah.
Well, it's interesting, and that was one of the things I really wanted to find out today too. Was like, can you come back from some kind of damage with your voice?
Yeah, it depends on what kind of damage. I have sent people to the surgeon because, for example, with nodes, for example, which is kind of like a pimple-like thing on the inside layer of each vocal cord. If a singer has had a node for a long time, there'll be scar tissue built up around the node. If there's scar tissue built up around the node, not really much I can do because the scar tissue won't disappear. They have to go
remove it
for surgery. Yeah. But if it is only a node or a polyp or something like that, our work usually gets rid of it. And it's actually preferable to do it that way as opposed to just go to the surgeon, even though that's a quicker path, because, you know, with vocal surgery, you can't make any sound for about 3 weeks. And then after that, you start warming the voice up, working the muscles and what have you, and then the voice comes back.
When you say no sound, like you can't talk at all?
Not at all.
Wow.
Not a thing. No peep. Nothing. It might be 10 days now, but back then it was 3 weeks. And surgical procedures have changed quite a bit over the last 5 years alone. It's just incredible what they can do now.
Yeah.
But the problem is with that is that once the voice is healed, everything's back. That's great. But what made the damage happen in the first place is still there, which is how that person produces sound.
Okay, so this is what I was going to say. Yeah. So for people out there that maybe think, well, I don't have any damage, like, how do you know? And how do you do things that are preemptive so that you don't end up with that kind of damage?
Well, I mean, drink a lot of water, learn how to warm up properly, and to be completely honest, and I'm not trying to be self-serving, study, like get a voice coach and study, like figure stuff out.
Frankly, you can say that based on how many languages and how many things you've studied. You are in a position to say this,
you know, but singing is so interesting because people think because they can talk and I can hold a tune, I can sing. No, it's not like that. But that is kind of the mindset. Now, if you want to be a great guitar player, take some lessons, man. Same thing as a pianist or a keyboardist. Take some lessons. Figure out, well, why not singing? You know? And the thing is that as a band grows, people don't understand this either. The entire industry relies on two tiny little pieces of tissue in somebody's throat. It's very weird. And at some point, depending on how successful a vocalist gets, they start to realize that. As soon as they start to realize that, the psychological pressure on a vocalist multiplies tenfold, hundredfold, you know, because if the singer can't sing, the band doesn't get paid, the production doesn't get paid.
Yeah, right.
You know, the venue doesn't get paid. You know, the truckers don't get paid. Like everything falls apart.
So with someone like, you know, like Taylor Swift or some of these kind of people that are doing like crazy huge tours, you know, and obviously, you know, because some of the production is fairly big, they're not necessarily back to back, but nights, but you know, like how does that person manage all that? Because that's got to be a huge, not only a huge stress, but just like it's the part you don't see, right? Like you see them come out, you see them on stage, they nail it, hopefully. Yeah. But then, you know, then they leave stage, and something that you said earlier kind of sits with me, right? Where, you know, where that one person, you got them up to, you know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but then you said they have to rest Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
They do, yeah.
So what happens on the road? Like on the road with these when these people are doing these intense tours.
Yeah.
What happens on the road behind the scenes when they're not on stage in terms of their vocal stuff?
Well, there's definitely a regimen if they study with me,
Sure,
because I make sure that they do it. But you want to stay hydrated. A humidifier is incredibly important, very, very important. And it's not something that a lot of people know about. They have these personal humidifiers now that they stick on their face, which is, it's great for warming up, but the humidity that is required doesn't last. When you do a show, it is an athletic event. It's a lot of coordination in muscles and airflow, yada, 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 all that sort of thing. The muscles are tired at the end of a show. So you're looking at vocal recovery. If you do not have a humidifier in your bunk, like if you're on a bus, a tour bus, or in your hotel room, the membranes in the throat start to dry out. During the day, it's not so bad because you're drinking water, you're salivating, you're eating. The problem is at night when you're sleeping. You're breathing, and if you're in a hotel room, bone dry air.
Oh, yeah.
Hotel rooms have to be dry because if they're not dry, then they look at mold and mildew issues.
Yeah,
right?
which is a whole other issue.
That's a whole different thing for them.
Yeah.
But as a vocalist, you want to have a humidifier by your bed or in the room just to give those, your body a break and heal and recover from a show. Because a lot of the singers that I deal with it's high intensity stuff.
Yeah, right.
It's really high intensity stuff, like Pup, The Dirty Nil, 3 Days Grace, Ian Thornley, Glorious Sons. I'm not trying to name drop here, but if you look at those shows, those are high intensity shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not just standing in a coffee shop and playing guitar. There's something else going on. And there's all the physicality on top of singing stuff that is very, very difficult to perform regardless whether you're singing in a coffee shop or not.
Yeah. And if people don't, if people over time when they're doing that level, if they don't have some kind of regiment,
it falls apart.
Yeah, it could be an issue for sure.
Yeah. Particularly depending on the tour schedule. I tried to make sure my guys, and almost everybody's on board now. And I'm not saying this is me, but no more than 5 shows in a row. My God, if there's more than 5 shows, you got to have a couple days after that. What's really good is 3 shows a day off, 2 shows a day off, 3 shows 2 days off. That's a really good pace. Sometimes it's not possible, depending on the routing, depending on
if it's a mid-level act that's playing Ontario, it's not possible because you have all this Ontario, then nothing, then Thunder Bay, then nothing, then Winnipeg, then
I know.
So the routing's crazy.
Yeah.
The US is easier for that.
Much easier.
Yeah.
The cities are much closer together.
Yes. Exactly. Yeah, and I toured with Finger 11 for a bit, and that was one of the things, right? Like we'd end up somewhere in the Midwest, and we're like, okay, day off today, right?
Yep.
And because it's easier to do there. It's not as easy to do here because everything is just so close.
And it's so dry out there.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so dry. You got to have the humidifier to keep things balanced,
Yeah, absolutely.
You do want to acclimatize to a drier climate, but you got to give your body a break when you sleep. It's all for recovery.
Sorry, I was gonna say, like, is there anything that because some of these artists that you mentioned are going not only in North America, but they're going in other parts of the world.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So how does that change things? Like when you start going to places that you don't normally sing in and you go to other parts of the world, obviously the humidifier thing is still a thing, but is there anything else that people need to be aware of when they go to other places? Like,
really.
Is there anything to do with elevation?
I have a guy going to Denver. I think it's Denver.
Okay.
It's like a mile up, man. Yeah, you got to be aware of that.
Okay.
You do have to be aware of that. I think he's there tonight, actually.
Okay.
You know, he was in Phoenix a couple days ago, and I think they had another gig, and I think it's Denver tonight. And you have to be aware, and then you just have to make sure that you compensate with your breath. You may need to breathe more than you normally do. You know, so
see, people don't think of this stuff.
No, they don't. No, not at all.
That's why you have a gig, Mitch.
That's right.
No, this is all. I'm getting my own education right now on this, because these are all questions that I wanted to ask, because I've wondered about some of them for years.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a bunch of this type of stuff that's super important, but nobody ever talks about it.
No, not usually. Not until it's too late or something, you know.
Well, and that's the worst.
Yeah.
That's why I said
the psychological damage that happens to a vocalist when they get into this kind of a situation is really, really difficult to get out of. So, I mean, I teach people to sing, but then I'm a psychiatrist on the side as well, you know.
Like anybody that assists people in the music industry is a part-time psychiatrist.
Yeah. Because it is a mindset that you do have to try and get into as a vocalist. There's a certain level of confidence that's needed, and that confidence really gets shaken when you get sick, when you get damaged, when you start to realize that the entire band is, you know, depending on you to be able to do what you do every single night.
Yeah.
It gets really, really hard. People have no idea, and a lot of musicians have no idea how hard it is for their singer. They don't have a clue, you know. So it's kind of a lonely road. But then, you know, the singer is always the front guy. That's true. I'm not trying to be malicious or condescending or anything, but you know, band changes the guitar player. People go, wow, okay. Change the singer? That's a different story.
Well,
the whole band changes.
Case in point, my wife bought me tickets to go see the Eagles at the Sphere, and we're going, and I, because I'm just so, of course, I'm a tech guy, right? So I'm enthralled with the tech of it all.
But in the Sphere, have you been? Did you see that show?
I have not been yet. We're going.
Yeah.
So, but I've seen the Eagles a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And I saw them with Glenn in the band, and I've saw them with Vince Gill in the band, right?
Vince Gill's in the band?
100%.
No kidding.
100%.
Huh.
So I've seen both versions.
Yeah.
And you're not wrong in a sense that from the guitar playing aspect, don't shoot me, don't shoot the messenger. Nobody, like, people are like, wow, Vince does an amazing job, right? Like Glenn did an amazing job. It was his band.
Absolutely.
But his son, Glenn's son and Vince being in the band now do an incredible job. Now, that being said, if Don Henley were to, God forbid, pass away and his voice was gone from that band, it would be exactly what you're talking about. It would be over.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah. The only band that I know of who got bigger when they changed the singer.
I think I know who you're going to say.
3 Days Grace.
Yeah.
It's the oddest situation.
Yeah, interesting.
They didn't lose anything. And when I started working with Matt, I had no idea. Like, of course, I know 3 Days Grace. Yeah. I had no concept of how big they are. You can't tell if you're from Canada. You have to leave Canada to understand how big that band is. Sure. You know?
Yeah.
And Matt did a great job, and the band just kept on growing.
Absolutely.
I mean, you know, they have 2 or 3 hits per record, like US rock radio hits. They surpassed Van Halen in #1 hits like 3 albums ago. Wow. Like, I had no idea.
I didn't know that actually myself. I didn't realize that.
No idea at all. Now with this new show, Adam's come back to the band, and holy cow, it's you know, both camps, the Adam camp and the Matt camp, it's like incredible. So, you know, the shows are sold out. It's a huge, huge tour that they're doing. The first single off the record was #1 for 5 weeks, you know, where both guys are singing in it.
Yeah.
Everybody gets along. It's all good. Everything's good. And it's pretty, I'm really looking forward to seeing this
I was going to say, I'm happy that they can make that work because, you know, there's a lot of fans out there, like you said, that are in both camps. But there's a lot of fans out there that, you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like, you know, both your favorite teams winning a game.
I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's cool.
I know. I mean, Van Halen tried it and it.
Yeah. They tried it, but I don't know if it was. I don't know if it
wasn't the same.
Wasn't the same.
No, wasn't the same.
Hey, what's your opinion on the AC/DC on Brian? Because I know there was a period there where he was having, I think, some voice sort of things going on, and now
it was his hearing. I thought it was his hearing.
Was his hearing? Okay.
I thought it was his hearing. That's why they got Axl Rose to come in.
Yes.
And finish the tour. I thought it was his hearing.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, but on that last sort of run, I was going to go see them actually in Detroit, and I saw some video footage of it, and I could tell, I mean, he's up there now. He's in his 80s.
Yeah. God, is he that old?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
Angus is still in his 70s, but Brian's in his 80s. I could hear that he was, you know, the vocal thing was not as on par as it once was, right?
Well, the human male voice doesn't mature until the age of 36 or 35, like in that area, right? But then you have a window of being in your prime until around 70.
Okay.
And then things start to go down.
Sure.
So if he's 80 and still singing that stuff, good on him.
I want to say 80, 82 maybe. I don't quote me on this, but
wow.
Yeah, so exactly. And when I think about some of the bands' names you've mentioned, right? And the level of show that is, and of course AC/DC is putting on shows at the highest level always, right?
All the time.
So, you know, that's a huge challenge. I mean, I think about even guys like Mick Jagger, right? Being another example of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He's definitely in his 80s.
Absolutely. And still spry. And
like, what does a person like that's regiment look like off stage? Because I know he works out a lot, like physically, but from a vocal standpoint, like, is that?
I honestly don't know what he does vocally, but man, the man runs. Like, he was running 10 miles a day until, I don't know if he's ever stopped. I mean, maybe he's stopped now. Maybe he doesn't run quite as far.
Yeah.
He was running, so his cardio was really, really high. And then just when you're at that level, you are vocalizing all the time. I have no idea what kind of help he's had. If he's had any help, I have no idea.
You bring up a point though. Like, as a singer, is it important to be in good physical shape?
Yeah.
Like overall?
Overall, yeah. And it depends on the show. You know, for example, Luciano Pavarotti, one of the most famous opera singers of all time, of course, was, you know, 350, 400 pounds, great big guy. Vocally, incredible shape, vocally. You know, but the days of the big opera singer are definitely long gone. It is a physical instrument, so the more shape that you're in, the better the voice usually is. You know, he was kind of an anomaly kind of thing, you know. But for the guys that I deal with, which are all the rock singers, punk singers, you know, that kind of thing, you do really kind of need to be in pretty decent shape because of the show aspect.
Sure.
On top of the vocal aspect, you know, because you can't just stand there. That's boring.
Yeah, well,
that doesn't sell tickets.
Yeah, I mean, radio can only get you so far, right?
I know, that's right.
Then you got to put on a show.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And so, when somebody, like, I guess I kind of asked this earlier, but when somebody needs to take a break from, like, are they taking a break from, like, all singing, obviously, like, between gigs, but what about talking? Like, what about, you know, like, do they have to sort of watch?
They do.
Watch it?
Yeah. You know, the meet and greets can be kind of difficult because usually there's a lot of background noise. Again, it depends on the level that they're at, you know.
Sure.
But even, you know, 3 Days Grace, for example, again, the largest band that I deal with, I do deal with lots of people, but there's always background noise. So you're constantly talking over. And so even if you're in a bar band, there's always background noise and you're talking to people trying to get,
Sure.
you know, fans and all that sort of thing. They end up pushing and shoving and yelling, even though they don't realize that they are. And that tires the voice out, you know, so you want to be careful with that. But everything that you study, it works exactly the same when you speak. Sound is sound, voice is voice. The worst person that I ever ran across for vocal damage was that young girl that I mentioned earlier, 14, the David Foster girl. Her mother had already had 4 operations on her voice, and she wasn't a singer. She only spoke.
Wow.
So you can, depending on how you do things, you can hurt yourself.
So does this
badly.
That being said, does this cross over into things like comedy and
everything,
like any sort of verbal performing art?
Everything. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Everything. Sound is sound. You know, even, you know, the corporate world, you know,
right.
You know, if you are a corporate leader or a politician, you want to sound as good as possible, which is, you know, making sure that the placement is right, all the areas that resonate for the quality of sound are working, all that sort of thing. And, you know, use lots of expression so you're convincing, all that kind of thing. It's all part and parcel. It's all of it works.
Yeah, wow. That's wild.
Yeah.
These are things I definitely never thought of for sure. Because, you know, you see people on a stage, whether they're corporate speakers or comedians, whatever, and they just get up, they go up there, they say what they got to say, they go off stage. That's it. Where's the beer?
I know.
You know?
I know.
And, but the more, you know, I guess maybe because I'm getting a little older and I'm starting to, you know, I know people, I'm starting to see people that are having some issues. And I'm like, wow, this is a thing. This is really a thing.
Yeah. And, you know, in terms of speaking, just to make a point.
Sure.
The quality of the voice matters, right? And it a lot of times it matters on a subconscious level to the listener, right? If that person doesn't have a good quality sound, subconsciously, the listener kind of shuts them off.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, I can see that.
They don't take them with the same amount of weight as somebody who speaks well, has a good quality tone, usually a little lower in pitch. Again, it's kind of like a subconscious thing. Those people, we see it all the time. These people shouldn't be leaders, but they are. And a lot of it is due to the skills that they have as a speaker.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of examples of that.
I know what you're talking about, and I agree with you 100%.
You know, there's lots of examples of that.
Yeah. And then you combine that with certain other disciplines like neurolinguistic programming and all these types of things, right? And all of a sudden, you're right, these people can become very convincing to the subconscious, and they build, you know, there's a whole tribe of people all of a sudden that builds around them, and the rest is history.
That is right. Yeah.
And so I think that's, you know, it's interesting. So one of the things that comes to mind when you say that is mic placement, because when I presented at the awards a week or so ago, London Forest and Music Awards, I noticed it on a pretty decent sized PA, and the music hall here has a pretty decent sized PA.
Yeah.
But one of the things I do is I get really close to the mic
because you know how to use it.
Because I know how to use it.
That's right.
And everybody else is way further back.
Yeah.
And so their voice sounds thinner. But I got lots of bottom end in my voice.
Yeah.
And of course, bottom end is the biggest frequency.
That's right.
And so very commanding. So I get real close to the mic right from the second I start talking. I get really close to the mic, and I don't have to talk very loud because I know that it's gained up for the last guy.
Yeah.
And so and right away I can not silence a room, but I can get the attention of all these people just by having proper mic placement.
Yeah.
And knowing how to properly project my voice.
Yeah.
That is something that simple, right?
That blew my mind when I started doing corporate gigs. Because I did some pretty big corporate gigs with some really big CEOs. And they got up on the mic and it's like, how in the world did you get to the place that you're at and you don't know how to use a microphone?
Yeah.
What? Because, I mean, I've been in music since I was 18. Like, it's just like you. It's second nature to us.
Yeah.
But you're making like 7 figures. Nobody showed you how to use a microphone?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I know, it's funny.
They know how to check stocks on their cell phone though.
They do. They do. And
Yeah. No, but it's true. It's part of an education if you are going to be a professional in your field.
Yeah.
And part of your profession is speaking to people.
Yeah.
Then the instruments, microphone that you use to speak should be something that you at least somewhat learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I agree 100%.
And I have worked with lawyers, teachers. Have I worked with any politicians? I don't think I have.
Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. But corporate executives.
Yes.
I've worked with corporate executives, and a lot of it is some of those people don't have the right voice to get what they need done. They have the great mind and all the experience, which is absolutely needed, but that little psychological piece of being able to speak with a quality sound to really capture your audience, maybe genetically isn't quite there. Then I increase the bottom end in their voice and make it just a little more robust and a little bit big so they can get whatever they want done.
Sure.
Those people have an awareness of what is needed, but a lot of times it's just, there should be more of those kind of people out there that understand this.
Well, there needs to be conversation around it like this, right?
Yeah.
Because I think people, there's a lot going on in the world.
Yeah.
And time is precious, as we know.
Yeah.
Especially when you have kids, you figure that out real quick.
Yep.
But so I think that people place a certain level of value on everything in life.
Yeah.
And I think that in a busy workplace where you're responsible for a lot of things and a lot of people, maybe you just don't realize that should be higher up on your values list.
And it's and it's also just not knowing how because what I do is I'm not selling myself. What I do is I show them how to do it, and then give them a file that's for them, the things they should be working on for their voice. And it's literally 10, 15 minutes a day. Do it while you're making coffee in the morning and you're good to go.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So after all of the touring stuff, you retared.
Yeah. It was just time.
37 years, right?
37 years. Yeah.
And then now you're working. So, and then you came to London. How did the move to London happen?
Well, when I retired, I didn't need to be close to the Buffalo airport anymore. Sure. Because most of my gigs at that point in time were stateside. Rarely actually worked at home. So it was fly in, do a show, and fly home. And the only way to make it economically viable was to fly out of Buffalo. So I was living in Burlington at the time. So, it's just down the road, so to speak. Yeah. But when I retired, I didn't need to stay there anymore. And we had been looking for a house for years. Just, every summer we go out and see 10 houses. Would we like to move here one day? That kind of thing.
Sure.
From Prince Edward County, all the Niagara region, and we'd never been to London. And I didn't need to be near the airport because London was too far before.
Yes.
So we came out here and saw 5 houses, didn't like any of them. And my wife had said, we were sitting down for lunch. I said, well, I did see this one other place has an open house, and it's about 15 minutes. It's not in London. It's just a little town north of London. And I said, well, we're here. We may as well go see it. Went and saw it. It's the first house out of everything all those years that we thought we could actually make this work. And we went to the park, talked to some of the people. We drove by the high schools, the grade school, and on the way home, got a call saying there was an offer coming in on the house. Do you want to get in on it? So I called an old student who was a real estate agent, and we put in a bid by 11 o'clock. The house was ours.
Wow.
Had no friends, no family, no job. Like, all right, let's go. So we moved to Ilderton.
Nice.
It was just an adventure, It was just like happened. And what a great move. Like, I love it out here. This is what a great area.
Ilderton is a great spot.
Yeah, but London has
London's a great spot.
London's great too. I mean, it has its issues downtown, but just like any other city.
I was going to say
just
every
like
city does.
any other city.
Yeah.
But man, what a beautiful place to have my kids grow up here.
It's the best.
Yeah.
From that standpoint, especially, that's one of the things I hear from so many people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that will leave, go to Vancouver, Toronto, whatever, in their younger years, do their thing, and then when they go to start raising a family, they'll come back to London.
Absolutely.
And they'll use London as a jump-off point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it is a great spot. Lots of opportunity for the kids too.
Yeah.
All different things, like you were mentioning, sports and and music.
Yeah.
And there's just
everything. Everything is here.
Yeah.
So we moved. I didn't need to be close to Buffalo anymore.
Yeah.
So
wow.
It was great. And at that point in time, like, I'm not set up for teaching in person there. As far as I can tell, this is going to be a little weird. As far as I can tell, I was the first person in the world to teach voice online. I started teaching online in 2001. Long time ago.
9/11.
Huh?
Was that That was because of 9/11?
It was before 9/11.
Before 9/11.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, before 9/11. I just happened to have a student move to Florida, and he wanted to continue teaching. I had already been setting up myself because I knew it was going to be a thing. I started buying domain names and what have you 2 or 3 years earlier than that, knowing that I was going to teach online because I was beginning to teach touring artists at that point in time, a lot of them. And I wanted them to have access to me when technology caught up. So if they wanted a session, we could do it, So I started in 2001.
That was early.
Really early.
Yeah.
It was a 1-inch square AOL video, and that was all the bandwidth we had. Everything else had to come through the phone, So when I moved here, I've gone completely 100% online. It's the only way to access me, it's totally fine. Everything.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for so long. I'm so tuned to it. But everybody is just all online. I'm losing the track of why I wanted to tell that story. But anyway.
So we were talking about you moving to Ilderton.
Yeah.
So you moved to Ilderton, and that's sort of when you went completely online.
Completely, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I was going to ask you. That was one of my questions. Was, do you still do anything in person? So that answers that. So you're completely online now.
Yeah.
Which makes sense based on a bunch of the clients that you're dealing with, right?
Yeah. But the way it was going before I even moved, whenever I talked somebody into studying online, I never saw them again. Because oh my God, you turn on your phone. 95% of my students are studying on their phone now because they're made for it. You know, the audio is really good. The video is exceptional. And I mean, how easy is that? Put your phone on a dresser or something, do your session, and move on with your day.
Yeah, totally.
You know, it's really easy.
Well, it becomes all of a sudden now there's no excuse for not doing it. There's no excuse for not showing up.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no excuse for not giving you a call if there's a problem.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
I mean, you know, because it doesn't really matter where you are now, such as not like 2001, right?
I know.
Such as the internet now, you can be anywhere.
I know.
I was texting with a guy earlier who placed an order from none of it, right?
Really?
And it's iMessage, right? So it's like, it's instant, you know?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you know, it's like 4 plane rides and a seaplane to get to this guy, you know, and he's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
But that's just the way the technology has gone.
Yeah, it's awesome. I enjoy it for that. Like I have students from all over the world.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. Philippines, Bali. I got a guy in Bali right now, and Manila and LA. Lots of people in LA and Vancouver. A few down in the States, you know, all over the place. Germany. That's about it, really.
So I guess I have 2 questions then. How do these people find out about you? I guess probably a lot of word of mouth. And then how do you decide who you take on? Like, is that a thing?
I mean, I have usually when somebody comes to study with me, I'll arrange a meeting, you know, just a Zoom meeting, and we'll just chat and make sure that what I do is what they're actually looking for, and that, you know, their goals are aligned with what they're going to get. You know,
that makes sense.
And then I'll teach anybody. I've always been of that mind. If you're willing to put the work in, I'll give you a hand. If I have space, I'll give you a hand, of course.
How often are you teaching?
Well, it was 6 or 7 days a week since I've been working 6 or 7 days a week since 1980.
Wow.
And a year and a half ago, so not this summer, but last, I guess it's only been last summer, on Wednesdays, all my students went on tour. So I thought, oh my God, I had 2 students left. I just moved them to different days. So now I teach Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I get 2 days off a week.
Hey,
after,
there you go.
40 years almost. You know, I think I deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And I would expect that everybody you've taught would agree with you.
Yeah, pretty well. But I always seem to end up teaching somebody on Wednesdays just because it's somebody's on tour or somebody's running into an issue. It'll be 1 or 2 students, but it's all good.
Well, passionate people that care are like this. My wife is the same. She's an osteopath, and she can't go to bed at night until she answers the patients and tries to fit them in somewhere, right? Like it's
I know.
I see her go through it. And like, I don't teach people, so I don't have this issue, right? But I see how concerned she is about this. Like, I gotta get these. I gotta find a place to put this person in. And she'll do it. She'll kill her lunch hour, like half her lunch hour, or she'll put them at the end of her day, or whatever. Especially if they're acute, and they need treatment, right? And so I get that. Like, I get trying to find time for those people, right? Yeah,
because usually the people that I'm dealing with now, particularly, work hard, you know, and it is their thing, and they're dedicated, and you know, I fully respect that, you know, and to touch on, you know, what I do repairs voices. I show them how to do it, but they do the work.
Yeah, they have to do the work.
They have to do the work. Like Stefan worked his ass off to get back healthy, and he's touring the world. And I think Pup is really kind of thought of as the 3rd biggest punk band in the world now, you know?
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
if he didn't have the work ethic that he did or does, it would have been over.
Game over. Yeah.
Yeah. Would have been over.
Which, you know, when people hear that, that's mind blowing, right?
Yeah.
Like that's literally mind blowing.
Yeah.
And that should give people the gravity of what you were saying about the importance of the singer's role.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
And
you
the-
know,
and
to
the weight
give
of it
them,
all.
to give them the breaks that they need, and to help with a lot of things that sometimes they need help with. In terms of, okay, I'll do the meet and greets. You just go warm up or rest or what have you. We'll load the gear. Just rest, as opposed to waste the rest of the energy that you have. I'm not saying that they need to slough off, but they do need to give them more lenience sometimes.
Especially, I would say probably over 40, 45, like once you get above a certain.
Yeah. Even though you're still in your prime, like, because there's that vocal prime, but it's just like anything else in the body, right? You can't work out, and I certainly can't work out as hard as I did when I was 25. Like, I have more voice than I did when I was 25, because around the age of 40, 45, the bottom end starts to come in and the voice can get really robust and much larger than it ever has been in your life. And the top end is still there as long as you keep it exercised. So it's a bigger voice, more control, but the endurance starts to take a hit, just like it, because it's physical, it's athletic. You just can't work it as hard as you could when you were 25 or 30 years old. So that has to be taken into account. Still a better voice, but, stuff is changing.
Have you ever taught like super young people, like kids?
I have. And it's not a great fit. I think the youngest I've taught were 10-year-olds, two 10-year-old sisters. What I do is, I'm a technical teacher. It's all vocal exercises and learning positioning and all that sort of thing. At that age, it's really all about musical appreciation. Develop a musical sense, experiment with different styles, have fun. What I do, I try to make it as exciting as possible, but it's not very exciting, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So it's not, usually I try to say nobody under the age of 14 or 15. They also have to go through the puberty stage. It's a very sensitive time for the voice in both men or boys and girls. Not so much for the girls, but it's still there. So you kind of want to get through that stage before you start doing some of the stuff that I do.
Right.
Yeah,
I was wondering if there was a sort of a difference between teaching younger people and teaching adults, and obviously there is.
Yeah. And it's simply just a maturity level as well as a genetic level with the puberty thing.
You mentioned maintaining your higher end range as you get older. How do people, I guess, maintain that? Obviously exercising it, but like, how do people maintain range, and how do you find out what your range really is because I feel like there could be times when people could push their voice too
all
too
the
far.
time.
Like, how do you figure out properly what that is?
Any note that you can scream, screech, squeal, you can sing controlled. It's simply just a matter of time and learning how to do it. 99% of the people out there don't take the time or learn how to do it. You know what I mean? And then because they're, when they get to a certain point in the range, which is almost always the top end, there's a problem with the midsection too that most people don't know about, but that's a different thing. You can hurt yourself more readily with the top end usually than the mid range. And rock and pop is all about the high notes.
Yep.
It's all about the high notes.
Yep.
So as you age, you keep on working that stuff. And if you're working it incorrectly, which is the majority of the singers out there, unfortunately, things with the decrease in stamina and endurance, things just start to show up and it snowballs, But if they took the time and they studied and, you know, worked on placement, worked on, you know, that kind of thing, it's all there.
We went to, so the very first concert, I have a 6-year-old, very first concert I ever took her to was the Beach Boys. It was, we did the run in Ontario that they just did.
Yeah.
My dad was doing that run production wise. And I said, hey, you know, Sophie's a big fan of the Beach Boys.
Yep.
And I should take her. And of course, you know, Brian Wilson actually just passed away.
I know.
Last week. Last week.
Yeah.
And like Sophie, you know, she's 6. She never met the man because he was obviously off the road. Been a long time now.
Yeah.
But even as of like this morning, yesterday, because she makes me play the Beach Boys now every day in the car.
Really?
100%.
That's
every
great.
day. She knows every word to every song. And it freaked out. There was a couple of ladies sitting behind us at the arena. And she was singing every word to every song.
That's awesome.
It was interesting. The one lady gave her, I think, like a little boa thing, and the other one gave her some glasses. And I could tell they were older, and I could tell they grew up during that time in the 60s.
Yeah.
And they saw themselves in her.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But she was singing all those notes, right? And then one of the questions she asked me, she says, you know, Daddy, why does he keep pointing the microphone out? Because Mike can't sing some of those notes, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I explained it to her. I said, you know, honey, as you get older, you know, sometimes it's harder for those singers to hit those notes.
Yep.
And so I play the music every morning in the truck, and so I think it was maybe this morning or yesterday or whatever, but there was one of the tunes where it's a fairly high note, and even I couldn't hit the note properly. Like I hit it, but not properly, and I went, I don't know if I should try that again. But it made me think about that just now. I was thinking about that. I'm going, there's some high end notes there that. Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm in my mid 40s, but I can't imagine being 70 or 80 trying to hit some of those notes. I don't even know if it's possible at some point. But.
I mean, particularly for the Beach Boys, they developed their falsettos, right? Which is all that high range that we have.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't necessarily sound good, but it depends on, like, all by itself. It depends on the style of music, and the Beach Boys stuff was all about falsettos, just like the Bee Gees. It was all about falsetto.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So as long as you keep that portion of the voice flexible, it's there.
Okay.
It's there.
Yeah, interesting. And that was the next thing I was going to talk about was falsetto.
Yeah.
Like, because I think there was, when I was growing up, especially in the 90s, there was a time where sort of falsetto was seen as this negative thing, right? Like not necessarily, maybe negative is not the right word, but.
Well, I understand.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like, and then it just became, you know, and then now, of course, technology has changed, and then auto-tune, and now even a bad auto-tune sound can become someone's trademark sound.
Yeah.
Right? Like everything, we'll get into that in a second, but everything has sort of, you know, gloves are off now. But falsetto is an actual thing, and it's accepted, and people have been using it for many, many years.
Yeah. It's a really important part of the voice. So what I really specialize is with something called blending, which is, so you have the two registers. You have the chest register, which is the register that we're basically speaking in.
Yeah.
And then you have the falsetto register, which is the high register that, you know, you sing all those high notes. Every sound that we make is actually a mixture between those two registers, from the bottom to the very top of our range. What you want to do is keep everything as flexible and in shape as possible, but then learn to mix them and get rid of that really annoying crack in between the two registers.
Yes.
You know, with this blending thing, when you get, it's hard It's hard to do. But when you get it, you can do anything with it. So when you hear Ian Thornley sing up there, he's blending. You know, that's how he sings those D's and E flats and E's all up there. And it sounds great.
Yes, it does.
Sounds great, you know. He's one of the few guys that I've worked with that did it naturally. I have run into a handful of people over the course of my career that, you know, just do it. But it's rare. In the case of Ian, when he came to me, it was an endurance factor. So he wasn't breathing and supporting properly. So I just showed him how to do that. And he's back up to 4 shows in a row if he wants them.
Sure.
If he wants it. But once again, I'm losing track of
the
discussion.
You were talking about blending. We were talking about falsetto and the 2 registers.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about it? What would you like to know?
No, I'm wondering if we were talking about that because I said sort of in the 90s, there was sort of some negative stigmatism around it, right?
Well, it was fully accepted there for a while. What did they call that? Like, metal. They called it cock rock. In my circle anyway. The guys dressed with really pretty clothes and nice hair and his... You know, that kind of thing. Yeah, it worked for a while.
It worked.
Yeah, it worked for a while.
Absolutely.
And then people wanted to hear, you know, people sound normal again. And,
yes. Yeah, it goes in waves, I suppose, right?
It does. It really does. Because it went through that wave, even in opera back in the 17 and 1800s.
Oh, really?
You know, it was all very high, very fluty, very... feminine, and then just people started to want to hear men sound like men again, and it brought in a period called the Verismo period, where it was bigger voices, big voices, you know, which is kind of remnants of where we are today.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, in the time that I sort of have knowledge of, right, you have the sort of the 60s, like the falsetto Beach Boys stuff, and then, you know, you go into some of the early 70s where there was less of that, and then it sort of came back again and then went away.
Oh, I know.
You know?
And it depends on the style, right? It depends on what you're doing.
Sure.
You know? But in the end, you know, particularly as a vocalist, what you really want to try to accomplish is, falsetto or not, is you want to be unique, right? Anybody who's anybody, nobody sounds like them. Nobody.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's people out there that are huge stars that, in my book, shouldn't be singing, but they are. And I only say that because it's not my flavor. That's all. That's all.
Yeah.
But an artist is an artist. So, I mean, there's certainly nothing wrong with that. It's just, we all have preferences, you know, but those people that for example, Aaron Neville. Now, people out there, there's going to be lots of people that disagree with me, but I don't like that guy's voice at all. At all. I don't like it. But he sold millions of records because millions of people do love his voice.
Sure.
You know, so whether it's, you know, a falsetto-y voice like that grates on my nerves, it doesn't grate on a lot of other people's nerves. He's able to have a wonderful career, but nobody sounds like Aaron Neville. No. You know, nobody sounds like Sting. Nobody sounds like Bono. All those people, Celine Dion, Dionne Warwick, any of those people that open their mouth, you can tell who they are within 1 or 2 words.
Yep.
That is the goal that a vocalist should have, is how can I be unique? How can I bring something different, you know, to the game?
And no, that's incredible. And solid advice. Yeah. And I think,
and that's not easy, by the way. No, that is not easy.
No, and it's a lot of work, I imagine.
Yeah. But some people, it is genetic. It's who they are. It's the sound that comes out of them when they sing.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Getting back to the technology piece for a second, I guess there's multiple layers of this.
Yeah.
I guess we'll start, sort of further back, right? So Pro Tools, I guess I remember back in the 90s when Dan Broadbeck was, I had Dan on the show, of course, and we talked about when he had DB here and he started to use Pro Tools and stuff like that, right? And even in some of the early recordings of certain bands that he would work with, he would have like session players come in. Some of the musicians weren't available or couldn't even play some of the parts, right?
Yeah.
But it's different with the vocal side, right? Because you have to be able to go out and sing. It's not like you have to be able to go out and sing this. Now, to a point, and this is what I'm getting to, is that there's a lot of people now, it's accepted now that you can sing the tracks.
Yeah.
Right. Back in the day, right? Milli Vanilli being the biggest example.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
We went through a phase of it, and then big explosion happened with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I understand it from the standpoint of I see certain people, and their show is so intense. Justin Timberlake, Usher. Usher is a great example because of the amount of dancing he's doing. But there's certain people there's a certain amount of stuff that has to be on track.
Yeah.
Especially in the choruses, right? Because to be able to hit those notes solid in an arena while doing a flip in the air, I know. It's not real. That's not going to happen.
No.
They're going to miss something.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson, I'm not sure. Did Michael ever sing the tracks?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I would hazard to guess probably not.
I know.
No, exceptional.
Which is why I think a lot of people, including Usher and some of those kind of people, always looked up to him for that. And you want to talk about practice.
Oh my God. It was his whole life.
It literally was.
That is what he did.
Yeah.
I mean, and a really true artist. It is. It's what they do. Brett from the Glorious Sons, he's constantly writing in between fishing boats. He loves fishing, by the way. He loves fishing.
I love fishing too.
Yeah. Ian still plays guitar 4 to 5 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week. It's just what he does, Yeah. He doesn't practice his vocals as much as I would like to see him practice, but he still pulls off great shows. So who am I to criticize, But it's who they are. And in terms of the tracks, the audiences have changed. The acceptance of a human voice, which is not, this might come out wrong, it's dwindled. People expect to see a perfect show every time they go to a concert. Well, that's not humanly possible. Nobody can play the perfect basketball game or baseball game or football game every single time they're out. You can't do it. Tennis game, it doesn't matter. Those people are athletes.
Yes.
A vocalist is an athlete. You are going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. And you can have exceptional days and you can have really lousy days, like crappy days. The audiences are much less forgiving in terms of that range, where you go out and you see somebody and it's kind of like not very good,
What do you think?
Social media they rip these people
I was going to say,
apart,
I was going to ask you what changed, but I think that's part of it.
A lot of it, yeah. And it really started to change, believe it or not, it started to change with MTV. Was when people started watching music videos
watching
all
instead
the time.
Of listening. Is that you think?
Well, watching and listening, and then going to the show. Okay, that's what I'm going to see. Right?
Yes. Okay.
Right. So the expectations increased hugely, and again, that brings a lot more pressure on a vocalist to know that they don't really have the leeway to be human so much anymore, which is unfortunate because some when things aren't going well, sometimes, man, magic happens. It's incredible sometimes when a singer will change something and it just works. There are things that happen. Whether the audience realizes that or not, I'm not so sure. But
yeah, right.
So the track thing, I do support it for a fashion, to a point. Particularly in the case of the big show, Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
How in the world do you do 6 shows in a row in Toronto without having the ability to rely on chorus support so you can lay back and relax the voice so you can hit that next verse the way that the audience wants to hear it, and do your dance moves and
the breathing and the costume changes and
because it's a show. People are paying, they want to see a great show.
Yeah.
So, but you got to be able to do it. That's the thing. AI bothers me.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. Sure.
There's definitely a place for it, but the stuff, I actually had something, an incident, an experience, I guess,
Both?
I guess.
Somewhere in the middle, yeah.
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago that really threw me for a loop.
Oh, wow.
And hopefully the governments can come together and somehow limit what AI can do in the music industry, because you're going to decimate people who have spent their entire lives building a talent, growing a talent, and I don't know what the answer to that is. Like maybe something like some kind of a watermark, so to speak, on AI music or AI assisted music. So it's recognized as artificial to a point or completely artificial.
Sure.
And then, having, channels, radio stations, radio channels, whatever, that play AI music.
Sure.
If people love that,
Yep.
Great. But you shouldn't be paid for it. You shouldn't be getting royalties. You shouldn't be taking royalties away from artists who have spent their entire lives or are building, who are writing great songs all by themselves. Mm-hmm. Something has to be figured out.
I definitely agree with you in a sense of I think there should be a definitely a different economy of scale there.
Something.
Definitely.
Yep. Something.
Because, input, what you put in is what you get out. And if you haven't put in that much humanly, then, you're not going to be getting much out. And I think,
or you're not capable of it.
Well, this is the other thing. Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting part about all of that. Right. And I think that, to use a couple of examples that came to mind while you were talking about it, they invented cars before they invented the rules of the road, right? Yeah. Like and in the case of food now, there has to be ingredients put on the food, right? So so what you're saying is not out of line in a sense that, hey, maybe we should know what's AI, and produced with very little human element, and what's got human involvement in it. What I brought up in the show in the past about AI is that I think it's a good tool in a toolbox, and I think if it remains a tool in a toolbox, similarly to tracks, similarly to another thing I was going to bring up, which is auto-tune. These are all tools that, if used correctly or sometimes incorrectly, to your point, you magically find something that it could be revolutionary in your sound. Great. But again, it's not, doesn't define you necessarily. It's just a tool in the toolbox. You still personally, physically have to be capable of producing the product. Like
that is correct.
You yourself, right?
Yeah,
that's where
correct.
the work comes in.
Yeah, yeah. And that is part of my fear, just in terms with, like, I do support tracks, but I don't support somebody walking on stage that doesn't have the ability to do what they're going to perform, and the whole thing is tracks.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? No, there's not really. That's an acting gig. That's lip syncing gig. That's not an artistic gig.
Yeah, right.
So.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think there's a fine line between it being a human art and just being art.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with you using a computer program to give it a command saying, hey, I want you to create a painting of a beach and all this kind of stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's typically just for your own personal use.
Usually.
Right?
Yeah.
The minute, like you say, the minute it starts to cross over into people utilizing AI 100% to create a brand and a career based on something that they can't do, that's going to be an issue when they go to perform.
That is definitely going to be an issue.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's got to be something in order to be able to recognize when it's been used, because I would hate to see performance royalties and, radio royalties going to people who just sat in their basement on their computer and asked the AI to create a tune, and look at this, it sounds great, and it gets radio play, and then you start taking royalties away from real artists, and that, again, like I said, it doesn't mean you shouldn't be heard. It couldn't be heard. Some of the tunes are great. That's part of the thing that I experienced 2 weeks ago. This tune, it was all AI driven, including the vocals. It was amazing. Great tune.
Yeah.
But I don't want to pay royalties to go buy it.
Right.
Like, because you just did it on your laptop. But it's a great tune. If I want to listen to it, I should have a channel that I can listen to it on.
Yeah, and I think
something.
We're in the infancies of all of
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
And
no kidding.
And I think that, again, like we said earlier, there's not enough people talking about this.
Yeah.
And so this is good that we're having this conversation, because there's people that are going to see this, and we need to start having, I'm thinking of one person, shout out to my buddy Reiner. I'm thinking of him specifically because I know if he was sitting in this room right now, he would be all over this conversation, because he's a huge advocate for artist rights and royalties. So, but it's, I think it's one of those things where we are in the beginning, but there's been some people who have had some sort of cautionary, statements that said, it's moving a lot faster than we are. And we need to be, aware of that. Yeah. Maybe not aware of what it's doing, because it's, computationally moving faster than we are. But I think if we're aware of the fact that that's happening, and we're at least starting to, like you said, put some things in place to go, okay, well, maybe this is in a different lane. Maybe we create a different lane for this. And I'm totally game for that. I think that that's a great idea. Yeah. And because I think that it's just a different form of creation, right? Like you have people that paint with a paintbrush. You have people that paint on a computer, that create art on a computer. Again, two different lanes, right? Yeah. Two different, completely different things. Yeah. And, you can't necessarily compare them in many ways, because they're completely different. Someone's put an incredible amount of time into learning how to paint with a paintbrush. I went to a painting thing in town here called Art Comp, and phenomenal. They had, I think it was like 5 or 10 minutes to paint something, and it was a competition. There were 6 of them on stage. And then, everybody got to vote on who was the best. And I mean, again, the amount of craft involved there, and the amount of talent and pressure, and, to just come up with something on canvas out of thin air, that is a whole different thing than getting on a computer and drawing anything, laying out a house, or they're just different. They're not, I don't, and in music, it's not like one is bad and one is better. Like it's subjective, right? Like music is subjective.
Yeah.
I say that to people all the time. Like I'm an audio guy. We're in the audio world here at Music City PA Shop. And so people say, well, what do you think's the best sounding speaker, micro, whatever? And I tell people, I said, well, it's all subjective because what sounds good to me may not sound good to you.
Yep.
It all depends on what your frame of reference is. If your frame of reference is a $20 metal baffle ceiling speaker in your office building, then you're going to think everything sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But, I obviously, with us having the production company, we have these stadium quality line arrays that we get to set up all the time. Right.
I know.
So our relativity to sound is it's not fair. So I always say, listen, you should listen to it. You should come in, you should have a listen. The amount of speakers and microphones, let alone guitars, that we sell without people ever hearing them is mind-boggling.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
That's odd.
Absolutely. We have customers that will come in and will say, hey, I'm looking for a speaker. And there's a whole pile of them that don't even need to hear it. They just buy it, they like it. Wow. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. Some of what's driven that in the tech side, so like powered speakers, studio monitors, that kind of thing, is this sort of need to find this balance between, I won't say great, but really good and price point. Everybody's sort of found this sort of path to something that technologically and physically looks good, technologically has the features. But it isn't the cheapest and it isn't the most expensive. And everybody's trying to hit that nail on the head. Yeah. So it's sort of forced a time, I would say, in the last 15 years and 10 to 15 years and on, hopefully, where we're seeing incredibly easy to use technology, whether it's, real mics, USB mics, studio gear, even the gear we're using to film this show. Yeah. I mean, all of the technology now is at a point where it's affordable, it's accessible. Yeah. It's easy, fairly easy to use. There's videos on how to use it. So that side of but the guitar thing, that's different.
That is a different thing.
Right? Yeah, that's a different thing. And, and there's many, many, many people that are old school that would say, hey, I'm going to drive, we've had people drive from as far as Quebec, to come here and play a guitar and buy it because they had to have that guitar because we do a lot of vintage and used stuff. Right. Yeah. And so, but there's a lot of people that are old school that say, I have to come, I have to touch it. I have to feel the neck. I have to play it. And then there's people that aren't like that. Now, we here are in the process of offering an opportunity for people similar to what you're doing that don't have to come here as much anymore. And so we're going to be taking soon a chapter out of your book. But that's a thing I think that, again, as technology evolves, we as humans just need to evolve with it. And getting back to our original conversation about AI, that's what I think will happen. As long as it remains a tool in the toolbox and we put the checks and balances in, I think that it can be a great tool. But we do have to be very cautious of it sort of replacing art, right? Like it can be its own form. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Like I said, its own channel, its own, how what you're going to see.
That's right.
Or listen to, what it is.
Well, I would compare it to what, and you're into opera, so you'd get this. One of the things you just mentioned kind of made me think about this is like, when MTV came out, there is now a major visual component. Whereas you mentioned Luciano Pavarotti. Yep. Big guy. Yep. A lot like he's doing backflips on stage, right? Like, so it's a different thing, right? That is like when you go to see an opera, it's less about the visual and it's more about the voice. It's more about
it's the sound.
It's the sound, right? The sound of the room, the sound of the person. Yeah. So it's So I think that this is a similar situation where, like you said, you know what you're signing up for. This is an AI concert. This is an AI channel of station, whatever. And you know what you're going to get there.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be this other thing.
Yeah.
Right. And, but this other thing can still coexist, and it can,
of course.
And if you want that, then you go for that. Right.
Absolutely. And that distinction has to be made, but then the royalty side has to also be like, you can't be taken. It's so hard for artists already.
Oh, I agree.
It's so hard for artists. You can't take the last little bit of royalty.
Well, and I think this would be a good time to, again, I brought it up in the past, but it's been a while, so it's a good time for me to bring this up, is the distinction between the music side of the industry and the entertainment side of the industry. Right. Yeah. What you're talking about is the music side of the industry, right? The creation and of music. And you mentioned yourself, all you wanted to do since you were 5 was be in a band and
wanted to
sing and and part of that is you're in a group of people that creates music and goes out and performs music.
Yeah.
And so music is a tool in the toolbox, and you need that tool to do those things. Those hits don't just write themselves. Like, I mean, with AI, they can now, which is scary, but you need as an artist, in my opinion, I think even if you as an artist, don't write the song completely yourself, which doesn't happen as much these days. No. There's a lot of co-writes, a lot.
Tons.
Yeah. And some of these co-writes are like, 6, 7, 8 names deep.
Oh, I know.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I'm down with all that.
Yeah.
But I think that the artist should still ideally be involved in the creative process, because then when they're performing it, like a Michael Jackson or a Celine Dion, because you mentioned their names, it's very authentic, right? It's very much their song.
Yeah. I don't necessarily fully agree with that, because a good vocalist, like an artist, can take a song and make it their own, whether they're part of the creative process or not.
Okay.
I sang. I didn't write.
Yes.
I made a choice in
Fair
that
enough. Yeah.
quite early on. I did try to write. I actually just found it a little too painful. It was, and I wanted to sing more than I wanted to write.
Right.
I wanted to sing great songs. Now, would I suggest anybody do what I did? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I should have, pursued the writing side and just worked through the pain of it. But I sang the hell out of a lot of tunes that weren't mine.
Sure. Yeah.
Just because that is my art form, making a song different, bringing out certain qualities of the sound, whatever. That was what I did. So they don't necessarily have to be a part of it, but man, it sure helps. It really does.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think if you're talking about royalties, that's where that comes into play too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's performance royalties as well.
Yes.
Right. So, the artist that's performing it will get a cut, so to speak. But sharing the pot is such a great thing to do, with all the co-writes and stuff, because almost everybody that I work with, there are a few people that are not, they are solo writers. That's what they do,
Okay.
But most of them are sharing. Because it's almost like a mastermind. The more minds you have working on a problem, the more solutions you're going to come up with. And
sure.
The product usually is better because of it, and everybody gets to share. Everybody gets to share, which is awesome. I think that's awesome.
And I think they're both right. Like, I think I've seen incredible songs that were written by one person. I've seen incredible songs written by 2 people. I've seen incredible songs written by 8 people.
Yeah. I've seen incredible songs written by people that can't sing.
Yeah. This is true.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Now you just need a voice for it.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah. Shop it around. Find somebody that can sing it.
Yeah.
Somebody that identifies with it.
Correct.
There's even people that have publishing deals for songs that can't sing, and they specifically will write songs for a certain camp.
Yeah.
Right? And shop it to that camp.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
That's a thing.
And man, if you can hit the right camp, boy, that's...
Yeah, it only takes one sometimes,
That's correct. It's not as good as it was, 20 years ago, unfortunately, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah, well, again, cautionary. It's good now, but to your point, we have to be careful, right?
Yeah.
That we don't erode something that we all love so much and that's so highly valued, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
At a time when it is sensitive, right now with music sales being what they are. I mean, streaming is what it is, depending on who you talk to. Some people make okay money with streaming.
Most people don't.
So that's a challenge, because you have a whole 2 generations of young people that think that that's not
the norm.
That's the normal, right? And that they are making money and they're just not telling the truth, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the other side of it is well, how do you own this house in the hills then in LA? Like, how does that work?
Yeah.
Well, it's financed. The label's paying for it.
Exactly. Exactly. But at least, what is a saving grace in all of this is that people are still going to shows, which is fantastic.
Yes.
Which is fantastic.
At record amounts, by the way.
At record amounts. That's right.
Yeah.
Butts in the seats, that I think is awesome. Some of the corporations need to get their fingers out of the ticket pot, or at least pull back and give the fans a chance to be able to afford to go to shows.
So I think this is a good point, and I haven't brought this up in a while too, so I'll make a point on it. I think that once an artist gets to a certain point, providing they have a contract that they can do this in, Taylor's one of those people.
Yeah.
Kenny Chesney's another.
Yeah.
Kenny's in a position where he's fairly self-produced, right? His shows are self-produced. So he's got this rig that he takes on the road. It doesn't really change much from tour to tour.
Yep.
Because I'm pretty sure he if he doesn't own the whole thing, I'm pretty sure he's got a sort of a stake in it.
Yep.
And that was kind of what happened back in the day in Canada with Bryan Adams. It was the same thing. Bryan Adams ended up basically buying the sound company, Jason Sound, back in the day, that did his sound. He basically bought the company because he was using them all the time. And so I think when you get to a certain point, if you're smart, and some of these people are in this sense, is the 2 times that I've seen Kenny Chesney, I was in what they call the Sandbar.
Yeah.
And that's an area that, it's a couple bucks to buy those tickets, but it's not unattainable compared to some of the other ticket prices I've seen. We're still talking just a couple $100. It's not crazy. And in both cases, I was front row. Now, I wasn't, he had his stage kind of jets out a bit.
Yeah.
So I was on part of that sort of area that's sort of in the front of the stage, and then part of the area that kind of jets out. The Foo Fighters do that. Coldplay does that. A bunch of people, right? U2.
Yeah.
But for a couple $100, I could be in that connectual position with the artist, right? And I think that when your shows are when you're able to self-produce, you can offer those kind of opportunities. Now, there'll be a lot of people telling you, no, you can get 10 grand for those seats now, or 6 grand or whatever it is. I think a friend of mine paid $7,000 for a pair of tickets for his wife to go see Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
But I just, at some point, my concern is, and I think you probably share this, at some point, my concern is, are some of the really hardcore fans that can't afford those tickets, are they going to be able to see your live show? Are they going to be able to come out and become a lifetime fan of your live show, your performance? Not your music. They already like your music.
They are, and they're streaming it.
Yeah, they already like your music. But I think a big part of how you remain to be these artists that span many decades is you have to have these lifelong fans.
Yes.
That even when like I'm taking my daughter to go see the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
And it's been 60 years since those songs were done, right?
I know.
And they're still selling out arenas.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Well, you need these lifelong fans. Yeah. And my concern is that one of the only ways right now, anyway, not only ways, but still to this day, one of the best ways is that human connection at a live performance.
Correct.
And if you don't, if there's all these people out there that can't get that opportunity because your ticket prices are too high, and not necessarily because of your own doing. There's a lot of artists that are against it.
I mean, that's the thing. Taylor Swift doesn't get $7,000 for those 2 seats. No. Whoever is selling it she has a guarantee. I don't know exactly how her business works, but some of the corporations are taking too much money. My thing with it is that if you're paying $7,000 to go see Taylor Swift, okay, but that means you can't go see so-and-so and this other group and this other group and this other person that you really like because you spent all your entertainment dollars on one show. That doesn't even benefit the artist. It benefits some person with a computer. You know what I mean? So there has to be some accountability for it. And so we can share the pot.
Yes.
It's really all about, sharing it all. So some of these artists have a chance to grow, and they grow through performing.
And there's layers to that, right?
Oh, there's so many.
There's layers.
It's so complex.
because there used to be a time when people could get an opening spot on a tour, and gain a fan base, that way. And now you have to pay to play. Now you have to pay to be on that tour.
Yeah, sometimes depends on the tour. I've got a fair number of students who.
Oh no, it depends for sure.
Who are able to get paid a little bit. But they hook up on tours. But there's definitely that. There's definitely that depending on the size of the artist, the show, absolutely,
the crowds.
There's definitely that.
If it's a big enough crowd, it's like, well, you're going to get exposed to 10,000 people a night.
Yeah. We need 10 grand a show.
Yeah,
oh, man,
it's only $1 a head. You're going to pay more than that for clicks on social media, aren't you? Like the thought process.
I know.
But it's just, I think that to summarize all that, I think that it all depends on the artist, right? And what they value. And again, it goes back to what I said about the values thing, right? What do we value, as humans? What do we value? And what do we teach? What are we teaching our young people?
Yeah.
Even from a parenting standpoint, what are we teaching our young people to value? And I hope that we're teaching them to value music. I mean, because it's scary if we continue to have generations go by that think that music should be free. I mean, to a point, but at some point, if the people who are coming up don't see a path to being able to survive playing and writing and doing all that work that you talked about, then what are we going to have for artists?
Not much.
Well, this is it.
Not much.
This is the
because
situation.
You still got to pay the rent. You still got to feed yourself. You have to do it somehow.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the way I see the path going, and I really hope it changes. It's becoming more and more and more difficult in certain circumstances.
Yes.
It depends again on the band. It depends on the circumstance. But then on the other side, I have people who are doing very well. They're usually smaller. They're not the really big ones, in terms of being able to make a sustainable living while still remaining independent.
Yes.
Yeah,
and that would make sense.
Yeah.
I think you can do that, again, depending on your circumstance.
Yeah.
You can do that to a point.
To a point.
And then to go past that, if that's what you choose to do, because not everybody chooses to do that. Not everybody can do it mentally either, right?
I know.
So if you choose to do that, then you have to give something up usually.
Yeah.
And that's when it all, that's when the art could tend to suffer and things change.
I know.
You know?
I know.
So, but anyway, well, what's going on in the future with you? What's coming up down the road for you?
Well,
teaching online still, obviously.
Yeah, that's really about it. I mean, this is what I do, and I love it just as much, if not more, than performing. So I'll probably, and the funny thing is, I've always said this, like, I'll teach until I die. I'll teach until nobody wants to study with me anymore.
Well, yeah, because technically you already said you're retired from performing, right? So
retired from performing, but
not
teaching.
Sure.
No, I'll keep on going till I can't. You know, so because it's what I do.
Yeah,
it's what I do, and if I have knowledge that I can pass on, I'm there.
Absolutely,
I'm down for it.
Where can people find you online?
Well, there's only one of me.
Yes.
Mitch Seekins. You type my name in, there's only one. And I pop up.
For now, until AI invents three of you.
Yeah, exactly. Invents three more.
Awesome.
Just I've got a website and social media just like everybody else. And I'm pretty slack on the social media thing, I gotta admit. But
you've been busy.
Yeah. I was on the social media thing. I was doing pretty good, and then I got sick. It knocked me down more than COVID, for goodness sakes. And I just haven't got back on the wagon yet. So we've got a family vacation coming up next week, and when I get back from that, it's kind of head to the nose to the grindstone and start pushing out that stuff again. And
cool.
Yeah, just keep on going.
Sweet.
Yep.
Well, Mitch, thanks for coming on the show, man.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah, man. This was fun.
Yeah.
Many years in the making since I was 10.
I know.
Well, thanks.
Crazy.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Hey, everybody. Ryan here from Music City Live. Thanks for watching the episode. We'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching Music City Live. If you like this episode, like the video. And for more clips and episodes, subscribe to the channel. Feel free to join the conversation by commenting below and visit us at musiccityliveshow.com.